Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly for pricing. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing details. Today, we're discussing a watch launched in 2021 in homage to 1969. This is the Zenith Chronomaster Revival Primero A385. Zenith aficionados know that three of the earliest case shapes, the A384, A385, and A386, and their attendant dials, have fueled a series of Zenith re-edition models. These are the ones that hew most closely to the company's vintage heritage. These are the watches for the purists, the Day-Fis, the sports watches. A lot of those are for new customers who are just adopting the brand. This is for the hardcore Zenith fan. So, 37 millimeters in diameter. It is 13 millimeters thick. It is 46.8 millimeters from lug tip to lug tip, and it has a 19 millimeter spacing between the lugs. The watch is very true to history, but it is modern in fit, finish, and materials. You can see on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, being less than 47 millimeters from lug to lug, comes nowhere near the edge of my wrist. You can see that well from over the top. Taking a quick look, you can see in profile, the watch is fairly thin. It has a sloped case flank and a generously domed sapphire, so it will slide underneath the cuff, and I can recommend it for a wrist as small as 13.5 centimeters circumference. Once again, my wrist is 16 centimeters circumference. The strap is high grade. You can see it is a very light calf skin with some honey undertones, contrasting stitch very slightly. The color of the strap and the contrast to the stitch echoes the dial, and that's intentional. We have a folded edge. We have a simple polished Zenith pin buckle. And then on the underside, we have a rubber inlay. This is something that Zenith's been doing for about a decade. So we have rubber underneath the leather, and you can see this is a brand new Zenith factory strap. And the rubber helps to isolate the leather from the heat, moisture, sweat, and grit of the wrist for a more comfortable and longer lasting strap. The case is a monoblock, and you can see that well. The bezel and the mid case are all one piece, so everything loads through the screw and case back. As a result, we get an authentically late 60s, early 70s appearance with this radial brushed pattern. This is achieved with a lapping machine. This was commonly applied in the late 60s through late 70s. We also have a polished bevel along the edge of the case, and you can see that the polished edging runs all the way around. The lug hoods are polished, the case flank is longitudinally satinated, and there is no seam between bezel and case, and that is the aesthetic benefit of going with a monoblock case. We have vintage pump style pushers, Zenith logo on the crown. You can see that the watch includes a generously domed sapphire, and it is a sapphire. It's designed to create some of the romantic off-axis distortion that you'll get with a vintage plexiglass, which is what the 1969 A385 original would have had. We also have here a gradient dial, and surprisingly, that is also true to history. While gradient dials are in vogue in our era, as they always like to say, nothing is truly new in the world of watches, and this one right here fades from a sort of champagne center to a medium brown edge underneath the tachymeter, which can be used to gauge the speed of an object, such as a car over a kilometer. We have applique steel rhodium-plated indices with a photina that's designed to evoke how the original watch would look after 50-plus years of subsequent history, and 53 years later, that tritium would have faded to a nice ecru coloration like we have here. But make no mistake, though it looks like faded tritium, it still works like modern luminova, and the watch is easily read in the dark. We have slightly sunken sub-registers in a contrasting silver. Sub-register hands are black. The hands at center feature black highlights down their center for better reading in the day, and then we have a red varnished seconds hand that is again true to history, plus a faceted aperture for the date. And the weird thing about all Primeros is when you pull the crown out to the mid position, that's where they set. When you pull the crown out all the way, that's where the quick set's located. Of course, traditionally the El Primero has not had hacking seconds, so just keep that in mind. The case is 50 meters water resistant, and you can see that the movement is caliber 400. This is the direct descendant of the original El Primero 3019 PHC, which would have powered the original version of this watch in 1969. They're basically the same movement. There were some changes to the escapement architecture in the late 90s, but for the most part, the El Primero was born correct, and other than component refinements, not much has changed. So it's still a bidirectional winder with a 50-hour power reserve, a single barrel, a beat rate of 36,000 vibrations per hour, because back in 1969. It was the world's first integrated automatic high-beat chronograph. That 10 beat per second rate as opposed to the 8 beats per second on a standard chrono is why the seconds hand has a smoother sweep, and against the ear it is tangibly more frenetic. The watch has the quick set for the date, and it has a lateral clutch and a column wheel, so you get the traditional beauty of a lateral clutch, which you can see moving here, and then you get the blued column wheel. And though you can't quite see it, you also get a silicone escapement, so unlubricated and high efficiency. That's one of those component detail refinements. You can also appreciate that it's a very beautiful automatic chrono. With the combination of the lateral clutch and a very minimal winding bridge, you're able to see the chronograph levers, the resetting hammers, the clutch, and the column wheel. A lot of times on automatic chronographs, all of this gets buried underneath chronograph bridges and winding bridges. The El Primero was and remains a very aesthetically pleasing chronograph movement. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.